Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Grandma. I hope you're enjoying this series. Leave a like, a subscribe, hit the button for notification. Leave a comment what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like me to make. So today we're going to make lemon squares. This is one of our favorites around here. I make it quite often, and it's a fairly simple, easy recipe. So, and another tip, like I said before, make sure you have all your ingredients. Get everything out of your cupboards, on your counter, follow the recipe, because you don't want to get the first 2-3 ingredients in the bowl and realize you don't have 1 or 2 of the items. Sometimes you can substitute, sometimes you cannot. Now, if you want to make orange squares instead of lemon, if you don't have a whole lemon or lemon juice, you can use orange juice. They don't taste, obviously it's going to have a different taste, but you can substitute the lemon for the oranges. A lot of times you can't substitute things. This is one of the things you can. So let's get started with our crust. The first thing we need is 1 cup of all-purpose flour. You don't have to sift it. You don't have to do anything at all. When you buy all-purpose flour, it usually comes pre-sifted. So 1 cup of flour in our bowl. Then to that we're going to add 1/2 of a cup of softened butter. Again, I use margarine, no butter, too expensive. And a lot of people say there's a difference in the taste. I've not found a difference yet. Not in baking. I mean, if you put it on toast or something, you can tell the difference. But in baking, it doesn't seem to matter. So we got 1/2 of a cup of butter going in. There we go. And now we need 1/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. That's your icing sugar, what you make for cakes and frostings. Now, if it's real lumpy, I would suggest putting it through the sieve or the strainer. This one's okay, so I'm going to put 1/4 of a cup in. So we mix the butter, the flour, and the powdered sugar. We're going to mix that all together and press it into an 8-inch square pan. Mix it all together here. Now, stir up here. Sometimes it takes a little effort to get it in there. You know, you just got to kind of chop it up and get it. You don't want it doesn't have to be real smooth because you're going to pat it in. You just want it kind of incorporated. Use a spoon, mix it all around until it looks a little bit chunky, until everything is sticking together. You don't want it totally stuck, but you want it to stay. You want it to be like this, like that, sticking together. So I'm going to mix it in there. You can use your hands because sometimes it just mixes quicker, and you get the feel then. You know when it's all mixed in thoroughly, when everything's incorporated into it. You see how nicely that's coming together? That's exactly what you want to see right there, just like that. Yeah. Just like that. You want it to be nice and firm so it'll stay in your pan. So we're going to take, you don't have to butter it, you don't have to grease it, you don't have to line it. It won't stick unless you burn it, then it'll stick. Done that a few times. So we pour that in, and you take your hand, or you can take the back of your measuring cup and pat it in so it's nice and firm, nice in there. You want to preheat your oven to 350. Whenever you bake, you should preheat your oven. If you put cookies or cake or something in an oven and then turn it on, it starts to cook as it's heating up. So it could change your cooking times. If something's set for 20 minutes and it's been in the oven for 3 minutes before your oven's heated, and then you still do the 20, you might be having some little burned product there. So there we go. Now, there's our crust. So what you want to do now is take a fork and poke it a few times here and there just to give it some air holes so it doesn't bubble up. Now I'm going to put this in the oven, and this goes in the oven for about 20 minutes. There we go. And on the middle shelf, always use the middle shelf of your oven for baked goods. It gets everything, it circulates the air, the heat and everything all good in there. So I'm just going to wash my hands from that crust. And now we're going to make the filling. You make the filling, and then as soon as the crust is done, you pour it on the hot crust and you put it back in the oven. So I'm going to start off with the filling. Now you put the granulated sugar, lemon juice, and lemon peel if you want. I never use lemon peel or orange peel. I don't like the zest. So we need 1 cup of sugar. This is a very sweet recipe. You don't want to be eating this if you have weight issues or diabetic. I mean, you can have a tiny piece, but so 1 cup of sugar. So there's a 1/4. I'm using my 1/4 cup measuring cup. My 1/2 cup had butter in it, so we're not going to use that. That's 1/2, 3/4. This is where your fractions come in. You have to know how many fourths make a whole. 4, by the way. Okay, so put your 1 cup of sugar. Now, 2 teaspoons grated lemon peel if desired. I'm not doing that. 2 tablespoons lemon juice. And if I don't use the lemon peel or just juice from the lemon, I've just got a bottle of lemon juice here. This is what I use. It's just as easy. We don't keep lemons on hand all that much. So it calls for 2 tablespoons. I'm going to put 3 just because it's a little bit concentrated. It's not right from the lemon itself, and I'm omitting the lemon peel. So this gives it an extra little kick. If you like lemony lemon, that's what you do. So we put the lemon juice in. We beat the sugar, the lemon juice, baking powder, salt, and eggs all together. So everything goes in the bowl now. So 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. This will make it rise up for you. And you remember I told you, use the edge of it right there, and you scrape your spoon and that levels it off for you. So 1/2 teaspoon, nice and even, right there, and that goes. Okay, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Pour it on my little measuring spoon here. There we go, there's the salt in. And now we need 2 eggs. 1 and 2. There we go. 2 eggs. You mix this all together. You can use, it says to use an electric mixer. If it doesn't seem like it's getting smooth, go ahead and use it. Usually this, look, it's getting there. It's mixing up very, very easily. There's no cause to get out your mixer. That's just one extra thing you have to wash. One extra step you don't need to take. It's very smooth. There it is. Very, very lemony, very smooth and creamy. So when our crust is done, I'll pour this on top and I'll show you how we finish it off. Hold on for just a few more minutes. Alrighty, we're back now and our crust is baked. This is what it looks like. Just nicely brown, just a little. It's going to still continue to cook. You don't want it to, it's like a shortbread crust. So now with your filling, you want to give it another stir because it's been sitting there. You want to get it all kind of solidified, so you want to get it all liquidy again. Creamy, lemony goodness here. You want to get it all mixed in, and there's your lemon. Now we're going to pour it back right on the hot crust. And pour it in, and then this goes back into the oven for about 10-15 minutes until you can touch it and it doesn't leave a dent. We're going to get all that scraped into the bowl, into the pan. Make sure it's covering all the crust. Give it a little spread. And we're going to put this back into the oven. There it is with the filling on it. We're going to put it back into the oven. And this is supposed to bake now for, it says 25 to 30 minutes, but I usually find in about 20 minutes it's done. Here we go, put that in, and we're going to set our timer. I'm going to set the timer for 20 because you can always add a minute or 2. You can never take it away. If it's too much time and it burns, you're done. So now while that is baking, we're going to make another recipe today. We're going to make Strusel layered coffee cake. This is my great-grandmother's recipe that was passed down to all of us, and I've made it quite a few times. So Strusel is a topping that is brown sugar, butter, and cinnamon, and you just sprinkle it over your batter. So what this is you put your batter, then the Strusel topping, then the batter, then the topping again on top, and it kind of goes all through. So to begin with, in a small bowl, we're going to put 1/2 cup of light brown sugar, and you always pack your brown sugar when you make it, when you measure it. Top is on really tight here, doesn't want to, okay, there we go. Alright, so half a cup of brown sugar packed. So we're going to put 1/4, and there's 1/2 of brown sugar. To that we're going to add 2 tablespoons of softened butter. Now you might need less butter, or if it's not, if it's too wet, you can just add a little bit more flour, because it does call for flour. So 2 tablespoons of flour. Again, we might have to add a little more. I usually find that I have to add a bit more flour because it gets a little wet for some reason. I don't know if the butter is a little softer than it should be. I'm not too sure. So, and then to that we add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Put that in. And there we go. Our cinnamon goes in. So we're going to mix it with a fork and just break up the butter, because you want this crumbly. You don't want it mix. You want it a crumble topping. That's where the butter comes in and the flour to make it nice and crumbly. So you just keep mixing until, let's see, can I get that in? There we go. You keep mixing and stirring until it's a nice crumbly mixture. And we're going to, after this is all incorporated and mixed in, you set this aside and then you make your batter. So there we are. There we have it. It looks pretty mixed in, just nice and crumbly. This time I don't have to add the extra flour. It must have been my butter was too soft last time I made it, because this is perfect. You want to fold it too. You turn it over to make sure you get everything up off the bottom, because it's very, on the top it's nice and crumbly, on the bottom you got a lot of light powder from the brown sugar. So there is your streusel topping. That's what it looks like. That's exactly what you want. We're going to set that aside and get our big bowl here. And we're going to make the batter. So for the batter, we need 1.5 cups of flour. Let me see here. Into fluffy beaten sugar, into butter. Okay, so I'm just reading the instructions before I start, because you don't just go ahead and dump everything in this case. It's not one of those dump it, stir it, it's you're good to go kind of mixtures. So you take, it says rotary beater. Again, I can use a fork or my whisk. You beat your egg until it's fluffy, and then you beat in the sugar and your melted butter. So it calls for, let me turn my page here, 1/3 of a cup of butter melted. Again, you melt it first, then measure it. If it was 1/3 of a cup of butter melted, you would measure it first, then melt it. But this way, you have to do it. So I'm going to put some, while I'm getting the egg mixed in, I'm going to put the butter in the microwave and melt it. And then while that is melting, I will beat up my egg. I'm going to measure it out into the measuring cup. Stick it in the microwave for like 10 seconds. Okay, and I'll put my egg in. And get my whisk. And you want to beat it till it's light and frothy. See how that's looking? There we go. You want to just whisk it up. You can get your mixer out if you like. And the whisk works just as fine. It's just, getting out the mixer and getting the beaters, plugging it in. You know how that goes. So there we go. You want to mix it till it's nice and fluffy, just like that. That's what you're looking for. So it says with beaters, beat in egg, beat in sugar, and melted butter. So you need 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. There's my sugar. 3/4. So there's 1/4, 2/4, and the recipe will be in the bottom in the description, and then you can just follow the video along for the steps. Now you see I melted, I put in my 1/3 measuring cup, I filled it up and I melted the butter. And you see that it's just a little over half. So that's why when it says melted butter, you melt it first before you add it, instead of butter melted. This is called for 1/3 of cup butter melted. So I have to add a little bit more to it, because if it was 1/3 of a cup of melted butter, I would do that and that's what I would be left with. But this is butter melted. So I'm just going to add a little more butter in it, and it is hot from melting it before, so it'll melt very nicely and it'll bring it up to the 1/3 cup mark. And just add a little bit in, give it a little stir, and there you are. You have a 1/3 of a cup. Still a little bit of a chunk there. We're going to just stir it a little bit more. And then we're going to put that in with our egg and our sugar. There we go. And we're going to mix that nice and creamy. Now we're going to put all the rest of our ingredients in now. So now, get that all creamy. We're going to put 1½ cups of flour. There it is, my 1 cup measuring cup. And we're going to do 1½ cups. Straighten it out, make it nice and even. 1½ There we go, 1½ cups of butter, or flour, sorry. 2½ teaspoons of baking powder. This makes it rise really, really nicely. My measuring spoons. 2½ teaspoons. Here we go. 1. I'm getting low. I'm going to have to put this on my shopping list. Getting down to the bottom of the container there. 2 and my 1/2 teaspoon. And 2½. So there's that in there. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of salt going in. There we go. I used to eliminate salt all the time. I didn't want extra salt in my diet, and I used to eliminate it. And when I had told my mother I did that, she said, "Oh, no, you have to put the salt in. That's kind of like a binding agent. It holds everything together." So I said, okay. Even on a salt-restricted diet, it's okay. I've talked to nutritionists, and they say it's okay. So there. Now we've already got the egg and the sugar and the milk. Now what you do is you mix that in. Then you mix in 1/2 cup of milk. Just give that a good stir. It's going to be real thick and gloppy right now, but that's okay because you're going to put your milk in. And now we want 1/2 cup of milk. And in that goes. And again, just give it a good stir with your whisk. It'll get nice and creamy. It's not going to be a smooth batter. It's going to be a little bit of a thick. If it's lumps or two, it doesn't matter. Coffee cake, it's okay. It's like pancake batter. You want to see a couple of lumps. That doesn't matter. Now I'm going to get my loaf pan out. Well, it says on here to do it in, where is it? To put it in an 8 by 8 by 2-inch baking pan or a 9.5-inch layer cake pan. I usually do it in a loaf pan. So that's what we're going to do. It's a little bigger than the average loaf pan. We're going to do that. We're going to put this, it's a little deeper than just your cake pan because we want it to rise up and have room. So you do have to butter the pan. You have to grease the pan for this because it'll stick. So you take some of your butter on a paper towel and go around all your edges. Make sure you get in the corners because that's where it always is going to stick on the most. Put a little bit on each, up the sides. Your batter does go all the way up the sides. There we go. Buttered cake pan. Easy peasy. See, there it is. Oh, you can see the butter on there. Okay, so now what you do is you take, I'm going to get my spatula. That's why it's good to have all this out ahead of time. Then you don't have to stop and run back and forth the cupboards. So there we are. We'll get the whisk out of the way. Now you pour half of this batter into your pan. You kind of just eyeball it. You just look, okay. I mean, you can measure it out and get for sure half, but you can, it's easy enough to judge. Okay, that looks like about half. And you spread that out. Put this over here so you can see what I'm doing. You spread that out nice and even. And you take half of your streusel topping and you spread that on top of the batter. Just take it by the spoonfuls and just, you know, shake it back and forth until it goes in. There we go. You can also go like this, use your fingers. It's a lot quicker because there's a little chunks of butter left in there, so it kind of sticks to the spoon. So you want to put half of that in. Easy peasy. Make sure all your batter is covered. There you go. You can see that it's all nicely covered. And then you put the rest of your batter in. Scrape it all out with the scraper. It's going to be a little tricky to spread because it's going to want to hang on to that streusel topping and try to mix in with it. So you just have to be delicate and just give it gently spread it onto the topping. I mean, some of it's going to come through and poke through. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. But you do want it covered so then you can put the rest of your topping on. There we go. You can see how that looks nice and there. I just grabbed it and one little extra spread and I did and it took it. Okay. So there it is, your topping again on top of that. And now you put the rest of your streusel topping on. Sprinkle that on, cover the whole cake. This is a very good cake. It's good with a glass of milk, a cup of tea. Slice it, put some butter on it, and enjoy it. Okay, there it is. How quick and easy was that, right? Not a lot of work, not a lot of effort. I mean, I have my recipe cards here, and you see this, and it's like there's the ingredients, and then the ingredients are continued over there, and there's instructions, and there's instructions. It seems like an awful lot, but it's not really. It's just because these are small cards, and I had to write it on there. So now, once you get it all done, you bake in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes, or until a cake tester comes out clean. So I'm going to put this in with our lemon squares. The lemon squares still have about 5 minutes left to go. I'll show you those when it's done. And I'll show you the coffee cake, how luscious it'll be. So hang tight, everybody, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Alrighty, now we're back. Everything is done and cooked. This is the lemon squares, all done. And to this you can, this is optional, but I usually do, you take your sifter and you sift over the top of it. If you don't have a sifter, you can use like a little mesh wire strainer. And you just coat the top with some icing sugar, some powdered sugar. And there is our golden delicious lemon squares. Let me cut one open so you can see in the inside how they look. Get them off the edge there. The first piece is always the hardest to come out. And there is our gorgeous lemon square. They'll set up a little bit, they'll be a little firmer, but it's okay, eat it with a fork. And there you go, look at that lovely lemon dripping off of there. Alright, and now I'll show you the coffee cake, which also is done. And this is what our coffee cake looks like, with the streusel topping on the top. You take a knife and you cut into that. And you'll see the layers of the streusel have worked through. And there is the coffee cake. And it's got the layers going through the bottom and the middle where we put the batter, then the streusel, then the topping, and then the streusel on top. And there you have it. So look in the description below. I'll put the recipe and follow the video along for the steps. I hope you enjoy it. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye now.